So I'm actually a little bit of tired, even though I slept like all day. Perhaps because of I didn't sleep for like more than like just a little bit of like, a few hours during the last I don't know 3 or 4 nights. But so I probably won't do much today. But I want to inspect the microscopic samples that are important, and maybe we will not do much more than that. We will see. I wanted to address one issue, actually, following like several videos that I've seen now, YouTube videos. So I would say that, I mean, unfortunately, I have no like academic knowledge of physics, and yeah, I mean, it could have been like helpful, but that's the way it is. I mean, I can't learn everything and study everything, and I don't want to like be presumptuous, like to be too like to try to how would they say, like wear feathers that are not mine, or like, I mean, just pretend that I can understand physics in any like advanced level, and certainly I can do it, and so I mean this better be left for other people, and I understand that other people are actually doing it as much as they can. Nevertheless, so I'm not even trying to like address advanced physics subjects. Like I try to limit myself to basic electricity, which is important just for me to actually conduct experiments, like very basic stuff, like things that were known, I mean, many decades, and not anything like futuristic or so. But I mean, it still need to like to have like, a little bit of like understanding in electricity, and like more than I currently do. But I mean, there is one like thing that I need that is so like important and so like, I mean, evident that I haven't addressed until now, and I mean, I think that for the record, it should just, I mean, mention it, even though, again, it's not for me to explain it or to hypothesize about it, but for other people. But it should be mentioned in these videos, and it's the following issue. A very like something that is very evident throughout all the many hours of like videos of like microscopy and also stills photographs that we have of the Neros. There is something that I think is very evident, which is that, I mean, presumably always, or so it seems to be, but I mean, maybe not always, but I mean, if not always, I mean, then it's not evident, but at least, I mean, on the surface level, it seems that always they are viewed like in the same orientation. Like they always look like. That's one of the reasons that I've said like a couple of days ago when I spoke about the Neros, like I've done like a summary, that I mean that I actually don't know how they look. Like I can only hypothesize because I only see them from above. Always, like they're always like, they seem like disc, like I mean like a ring or a disc or a field disc, like from above. And this is actually peculiar because it's not true for like other like microscopic objects, like many life forms. You can see them like from all sorts of orientations because they move. It's 3D, it's not 2D space. I mean, even though it's microscopic, it's 3D space. It's not 2D. Sometimes you can change, like I mean, by you change the focus, you can see a totally different scene because it's 3D, like environment, like every environment or in the natural world. So this is quite peculiar. I mean, what's happening here? I mean, like, you put the drop, like, you take a drop from a sample, you put it like on the slide. So at least, I mean, you expect that several will be like, you will see them for different orientations. Now, it could be argued that sometimes, I mean, the orientation is not exactly like horizontal, I mean, to the slide, but it's almost horizontal. So we interpret it like, I mean, horizontal because, I mean, the mind like interpret like the not totally rounded shape as a round shape to compensate for and to see everything like on the same plane. This is a possibility, and we know that Neros do not always look to us like, I mean, perfect rings. It's not exactly the case. So maybe it's true that, I mean, we know that they do not always look like a perfect ring. So maybe when we see distortions, or perhaps even when we don't detect distortions, it's because the mind compensates for the object not being exactly in the same plane as the rest of the objects. But this cannot explain why. This can only explain like minor changes of angle from the plane, but it should have been. We should have. We've seen so many of them. So why don't we see several that are completely like distorted? Like all sorts of angles from the plane. This is very, very peculiar. So I can say that I understand this phenomenon, but it's so important and so evident that I wanted to mention it, and I will say just a couple of words about it. And please take everything with a lot of grain of salt, many grains of salt, because it's not for me to discuss such issues because I don't have the background. So I will say the following: what we see here is probably a testament for that the neurons actually orient themselves to something. Because they are smart. They are not stupid like germs or microbes that just flow with material. They always do things. So they orient themselves to something. So when I take the drop and put it on a slide, they immediately orient themselves to something. Now, what is this thing that they actually orient themselves to? Could have been the slide, but why should they do it? Why should they care about the slide? Maybe. But, it seems to me less probable that they orient themselves to the slide because, it's difficult for me to understand why should they do it, and what's the physical principle, behind it. Another option is that they orient themselves to a magnetic field. And this is more probable. Now, what could be the magnetic field? So here we have several options. The first and the most obvious is Earth. I'm sure that they can detect the very, weak magnetic field of Earth. And again, they have a hive mind, so it's not that every one of them needs to detect it. They should. Only one needs to do the detection, or all of them together. So it's possible that they orient themselves with according to the magnetic field of the Earth. And another option is that there is another strong magnetic field, perhaps something that is generated by the microscope, because the microscope is made of metal and plastic, but there is a huge chunk of metal in the microscope. And so perhaps there is something, perhaps they orient themselves to a magnetic field that is created by the microscope. I don't know what is more probable, of the two options. It seems, maybe, the magnetic field of the microscope can sound more easy to enter, because of course it's presumably could be much stronger because it's right there, but I'm not certain that that it even exists. I don't know if it's just a theory that there's some kind of magnetic fields that created by the microscope. Maybe it does, maybe it doesn't, and and we surely know that there is a magnetic field that is created by the magnetic core of the Earth, by the metal core of the Earth. Now, what kind of material orients itself to a fixed orientation when it's inside the magnetic field? So I admit I couldn't have known the answers without the YouTube video, but it's type 2 superconductors, and I don't know to say anything more because I don't want to be presumptuous. I don't know enough. I have so limited knowledge. So anyone just can read about it. And draw his or her own conclusions. But I would say that amongst other evidence that we've seen, and especially the greatest evidence is the fact that they are not burned by the arduous work that they perform But that's probably another evidence that these things are actually superconductors, room temperature superconductors, a material that is not known to humanity and is only hypothesized and, of course, extremely valuable. And the nice thing about it that it actually can reproduce itself in tremendous quantities, as it was actually proven. I mean, it was definitely proven yesterday when we saw that they reproduced what actually created, I mean, they demonstrated their godlike properties of creating, life forms, and this was proven. So they can reproduce themselves, and even though they are tiny, they are not super tiny. I mean, like in the microscopic scale, they can be rather large. And as I said, I mean, the largest that we've seen are less than like a less than order of magnitude below. I mean, things that you can see in the visible eye, like in the naked eye. And again, they can multiply only by eating like life forms that, like bacteria and all those synthetic life forms that they create themselves. So this material is, I mean, even if you don't eat it like the Israelis did, and you're not stupid like the Israelis, this material, and even if you don't take into account like its godlike properties like of creation, which you should, because it's the main like characteristics, but even just, I mean, by the fact that it's by physical nature is that it's superconductor that is like stable in room temperature and can be multiplied, like potentially, I mean, there is no end to how much it can be multiplied. Like, I mean, potentially you can use it to terraform planets. I've said it in the past, but I think that, I mean, the whole like aquarium like experiment and research, I mean, I think that it was a great support to my claim that this can, I mean, because we started to actually see an ecology. This is an ecology that contains huge amounts of these robots, and they still exist. Like they didn't die or something. I checked yesterday. They are fine in the various jars. And so, of course, I mean, the implication is very simple. Like, I mean, they can populate whole planets and terraform these planets. This is not science fiction. You can actually, I mean, everything that I just said is proven by evidence that you've already seen. These things can terraform planets. It's not science fiction, it's reality. I mean, there's a question of what can they eat. I mean, I don't know if I mean, the how do you say, the prochloriates or whatever, like the things that are abundant in the Martian soil, they can use it like as feeding. I don't know, perhaps they can. If they can, then it means that these things can terraform Mars. That's not science fiction, it's reality. Certainly, they can terraform other planets, like with those with life forms on them, like even just, I mean, microbes. And of course, they can terraform Earth. And arguably, they're already doing it. And still, I mean, I'm in the Nazi prison. I'm kept in the Nazi prison with the boots of every piece of shit of the earth on my head, with the lowest scum of the earth, like the unbelievably disgusting people that were sent here from all over the world. I mean, trying to shout commands at me, so I will just comply with whatever, like, with them trying to rape me and try to eat me alive, like, literally. I mean, when you think about, like, I mean, what was already, like, proven to you, manifestedly, like, this is manifested truth, that, I mean, that these robots can terraform planets, that they can create life forms. And, I mean, those people in Israel, the Israeli people, and it's not one or two, it's a society, they keep trying to shout commands at me, so I will comply with their supposedly hypnotic suggestion or subliminal influence. So presumably I'm a robot that will obey their commands, and their commands are always related to rape or to them eating me alive. This is not fantasy, it's not science fiction, it's reality. This is Homo sapiens, and this is the year 2023. This is it. You need to take a look at the earth and at humanity and see it as it is, not as you wanted it to be. But you need to watch these things and to understand what you are and what is this planet. This is not the planet that you want it to be, it's what it is. And this is not humanity as you wanted it to be, but as it is. It's disgusting. It's barbaric. It's cruel. It's lawless. It's chaotic. And it's just disgusting.